Starting live.
Are we live?
I don't know. Oh, it says you are now live. Okay, so I don't know if people are going to join us, but
You're frozen for me right now.
That's fantastic. Okay, hold on. Am I still frozen?
Mm-hmm. Your face is. Like the video is frozen, but I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, that's weird.
One person's watching.
Okay, hi,
one
person
now you're
watching.
not frozen.
Okay, all right.
Can you see me though?
No, I can't see you.
I can't see me either.
Hi, welcome to the Changing Perspectives podcast, where we know nothing about technology. Bear with us if you are here. Do you have your camera turned on?
Yeah, I mean,
did you select webcam?
Hold on, watch together, raise hand, activities. What's this? Watch together. Nope. Ooh, we could watch a video together. Oh my goodness.
What?
There I am.
All right. Okay. What did you have? So I need to know, what were you doing wrong?
It's like Zoom, kind of, where you have there's like a camera down the bottom.
Oh, okay. It is not the most user not friendly. It's not the most intuitive system, especially when you spend all day like on Zoom. So hi, there were 11 people and 2 left, and I don't blame them. Hi, welcome to another.
This is not good. See you later.
Another live recording of the Changing Perspectives podcast. This time, so we did do this last week. If y'all were here with us, we have changed some audio on Josh's end. So if you're listening to the podcast recording on Spotify or iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, hopefully his audio will be better this week. The feedback was that mine was okay. And hopefully it stays that way, because I really don't want to have to pull out the actual microphone like Josh has right now. So
you're good.
All right. So I think that we're broadcasting live. But Josh, why don't I check and you can tell us what we're going to be talking about today.
Okay. So you've got something special for us first, but after we do your special Friday thing, we are going to talk about animated movies and grief.
Yes. Okay.
We decided that we would do our top 5 animated films that handle grief and loss. Since we're grief and loss experts and we love movies, let's merge the two. We talked about this last week, how we do we do a little pop culture and connect it to our themes. So that's what we're doing this week.
True story.
But why don't you explain TGIF?
Okay.
What are you doing right now?
And then remind why.
You look like you're like paying the bills and
I was trying to pop out the comment screen, but it like won't get skinny enough to fit. Whatever.
I wonder if I can see it now that I'm on the computer and on my phone. What's this?
I don't know.
Share your screen.
No, don't do that.
I don't want to do that.
What am I supposed to be doing? Oh, talking about the Friday thing. So the past 2 Fridays, I did get on and do a scary Facebook Live, which I don't really know how I feel about it, but Facebook encourages it, and perhaps it is a way for us to actually do podcasting a little more regularly. I can hear you breathing.
Oh.
Yeah. Don't breathe.
Okay.
Don't stop breathing.
Maybe I'll mute myself. Well,
then you muted yourself too early. So sort of taking a different perspective on how we look at our lives. And so often we get to the end of a week, we get to Friday and we're like, TGIF, right? Thank God it's Friday. Thank God the week is over. The weekend is here. And that's not exactly a really healthy or positive way to look at our lives, right? If we're just sort of slogging through the week and then living for the weekend. There's a song about that. But so
everybody's working for the weekend.
So I think it can be important to sort of change our perspective and the way that we look at things. So something I've been trying, and this will be the 3rd Friday, is when we get to Friday, instead of it being TGIF, thank God it's Friday, thank God it's all over, because I'm super dorky and into like an acronyms and abbreviations and things like that, I have come up with 4 different things that TGIF can stand for instead of thank God it's Friday. So The T would now stand for a task that you have completed. And sort of bonus points if it's a task you didn't think you were going to complete, or it's one of those tasks that's been on your to-do list week after week after week. The G stands for some sort of gratitude that you have gained this week, something that you're grateful for or thankful for, but it's gratitude, so it's a G. I is insight, so some sort of insight that you've gained from this past week. And then F is something funny, something that made you laugh. So instead of a TGIF, thank God it's Friday, it's TGIF, a task I did, something I'm grateful for, insight I've gained, and something that made me laugh this week, something that was funny. So I threw this out to Josh and said, hey, do you want to do this on the podcast? Because I've been doing this on Friday anyways, and we're recording this on a Friday. And he said, sure. So do you want to go first?
Ooh, the pressure.
I know.
Sure.
Okay. We're sharing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I assume we start with T.
That is correct.
Task.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So for the task for me this week that I completed has to do with fitness. I'm very, very involved right now. My current fitness journey is strength training and muscle building. Jenny and I, you'll find Jenny and I at the gym on the daily.
Yes, but not talking
awesome.
to each other.
No, you ignore me, actually.
I ignore everybody at the gym.
So today was leg day. It was also a day that I was going to increase my PR, personal record, on trap bar deadlift, and I did. So I PR'd and I maxed out my trap bar deadlift. And very proud of that task. So that was my task.
Hey, good.
Yeah. What about you?
Oh, all right. You're not going to do your TGIF. That's,
you know, that's how we do things.
Well, I guess
like if you're going to invite,
I guess that's
I'm not going to do the whole thing.
Okay.
We do two T's, two G's, two I's, and two F's.
All right. Okay. So my T is that I find I have not been doing very much writing, probably because I can't speak words. You have seen stuff. If you follow my page, you see stuff, but some of it is stuff I've already written, and I sort of schedule stuff out ahead. But I have not sort of finished any other pieces. And I finally this week finished, well, I had started it. I finished 3 pieces that I had been working on for a while. 2 of them have been sitting in my drafts for probably a year, if not longer. And you know this, Josh, at any time I probably have 4 or 5 dozen drafts of things. They're like in my emails, in my notes,
Jenny's
Google Docs.
Notes in her phone it's like an encyclopedia.
Well,
chock full of
craziness.
Notes. Craziness.
Yeah, and so the 2 of these in particular, just like I couldn't finish. Like I just didn't know how I wanted them to add. I don't know. They're not spectacular, but they're done. So I have 3 of them done. 1 I posted last night, 2 are scheduled within the next week. I can't remember when I scheduled them for, but that was a task that literally has been on my to-do list forever, and hadn't felt good because I like to write and I hadn't been able to sort of make that happen. I sort of had some writer's block, I guess. So that was my T. So if you're just joining us, We're talking about sort of reframing TGIF and finding a way to look back at our week in a more positive lens instead of just being like, thank God it's over. So T instead with this new format is a task that you are proud of yourself for accomplishing. So now we're moving on to G, which is something that you're grateful for, or gratitude.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to get hokey.
Well, hold on. Before you get hokey, is that Everett behind you just sleeping so peacefully? Okay.
It is Everett.
Right.
Lola's in here too. Pixie was stalking the computer from behind the camera, so you couldn't see her. But okay, so I'm going to get hokey for my gratitude. I'm thankful for, I'm grateful for you and our relationship. And it's not just, I'm not trying to win points here.
Is this another competition week?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
No, it always is. I went away on a guys weekend last weekend, which was a blast. It's an annual thing, and it's we could do a whole podcast series on that whole thing. That would not be family friendly. Mm-hmm. But towards the end of the weekend, it was a 3-day weekend, 2.5 day really. I was so looking forward to come hang out with you. And I was just so grateful that we had an awesome Sunday, and we went out and then came home and hung out with the boys, and it was great. So I'm grateful for you this week because
Aw.
heart absence made the heart grow fonder, which was very true for us at the beginning of the week.
At the
Listen,
beginning of the
I'm
week.
well, yeah,
The hearts
it
are
was
not so
this is a
fond now.
TGIF, right? The whole week.
Yes.
So this was at the beginning of the week. Uh, I know I'm a bunch of males listening, and or whoever, males, females, probably rolled their eyes, but whatever. It
Okay.
is what it is. It's true.
That's what happens when most people listen to you. They roll their eyes.
Oh, that's funny. That's
Mm,
real
yeah.
funny.
They roll their eyes
I
at
was just so
they
nice, and you
roll their
just were
eyes at
mean.
me too. They roll their
Oh,
eyes at
good.
us. Like, oh, the Brennans. All right. So my gratitude is, I guess, a little bit similar. Um, it's it's sort of building off the fact that you had a guys' weekend last weekend. The weekend before that, we were away because you had a show in New Hampshire, and the boys said, "Let's go away for 2 nights." And the weekend before that, we were in New Hampshire with our family, and the weekend before that, we were getting home from a vacation. And so this is the first weekend uh, since June that is just
Hmm.
a boring weekend that like
Yes,
we
with nothing to do.
well, we can finally put away our suitcases,
Yep.
and maybe do some cleaning, like sort of organization. Like there's still a comforter from our trip that is out on the dining room chair, that only I appear to be able to see. Um, but like, so I'm super excited to just have a boring weekend, like because
Yes.
we haven't had one. So I'm really grateful
Yeah.
that, and actually the rest of our summer is kind of like that, which is lovely because now we're in this sort
Yeah.
of sandwich piece between, all of our hectic sort of beginning of the summer vacation stuff, which is great, and then how crazy our fall will be because you're coaching, and our
Yeah.
youngest is playing football, and so football will literally take up 7 days a week from mid-August through mid-September, and then only
Hmm.
6 days a week, um,
Yeah.
until
But it's still a
until
lot.
November. It's a lot, so it's nice. I'm feeling really grateful that we've got a little slowdown to kind of do nothing.
Yeah. All right. So insight.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. So insight for me, I had some insight. It's almost like a sort of a realization or an epiphany, or I was confused or like undecided about something, and then I had a realization, and that's what I'm looking. That's how I interpret insight. I don't know if I did that the right way,
Okay.
um, but that's how I interpreted it, and has to do with tattoos. So I am fairly new within the last year, tattooed person with ink. I don't know what you call that. But anyway, I don't want to go into the whole thing, but very hesitant throughout my whole life, to get a tattoo because I didn't know what I wanted, and I want to be very deliberate and thoughtful. And so our oldest is old enough to get tattoos, and we got our first one together about 9 months ago, 10 months ago. And it meant a lot. We actually got the same thing. And then about 4 months later, we got our second tattoo. So now we're both very much into the tattoo thing. That's what happens, I guess, when you get your first tattoo. But I don't want to just be willy nilly about it. And the second tattoo was special to you and I. It's about
Mm-hmm.
you and I's relationship. Um, and we're planning our next tattoo, our oldest and I had this realization that I have a specific plan for each arm. So my right arm right now, the tattoo is special to me and Jackson, or our oldest. Sorry. Um, and I decided that I want to keep my left arm about our relationship. So the next one I'm getting is going to be something that's special to us from high school. So my left
Got
arm
it.
is about you and me, and my right arm is about me as a dad with the boys and the dogs and that kind of stuff.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
What are you getting? This is new.
Want me to show you? I can show the
Are
camera.
you get maybe?
Um,
Are you getting a
yeah,
trombone?
it's sort of
Oh,
not really a trombone, but it's a bass clef. But it's sort of a tribal fancy bass clef, and that's what's going to go on my arm under the other thing, which is a compass for you and I.
okay. All
And the
right.
bass clef represents music, of course, but also Jenny and I met through playing trombone together, and trombone's written in bass clef. So yeah, I'm going to be, my insight is that here on out, I'm going to be very deliberate about tattoos, and they're meaningful. We have an artist who's amazing, and we trust him 1,000%. And so, yeah, that's my insights about tattoos.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, that's very sweet.
Yeah.
All right. So my insight is, well, I mean, it's something that I say a lot, but I sort of lived it this week. It's okay to do the things that scare you. And in fact, I think that
Mm.
that is where kind of life is, right? Like if you're kind of living life, really rigidly sort of between the lines, and you're kind of afraid to be scared and afraid to sort of push yourself, are you really living? And then also the other end of the spectrum, like if you're um, constantly sort of chasing a high and chasing adrenaline and endorphins and all of that, are you really living, or are you sort of running away from like anxiety and stress? So there seems to be this sort of sweet spot. And I did something this week that I think is really scary for me, but I did it, and then like instantly felt really excited and good about it. So I am meeting strangers from the internet, but they are strangers who have really kind of been my lifeline during COVID and when everything shut down.
They're
And
not really
they're not
strangers,
strangers.
though.
I've never met them in person. And I've got sort of
Right.
two groups of like internet friends. So the first group goes all the way back to when I was pregnant with our oldest 17 and a half years ago, um, right when I was pregnant. And they're other moms that I met that were at the same stage in their pregnancy. And there were a whole lot of us. And now there's probably like a dozen and a half of us that are still in touch. And I've actually never met any of them in person. I think that's true. But they're still like people that I trust wholeheartedly. And we kind of all go to each other with problems. So I'm not meeting them, but maybe I will. At some point. But this other group of internet friends are my like writer friends, and have really kind of encouraged me to sort of do all of this, right? To continue writing and put my voice out there and not be afraid of whether people like it or not. And so they put together a weekend, and normally Jenny, who's like socially awkward and I'm very indoorsy and very introverted, would not want to do that, but I had the flight is free, and the house is free, and the women are fabulous, and so I'm going. And as soon as I
Yeah,
booked those tickets, I was like, I felt this, I don't know, sort of
that's awesome.
wash of like calmness. Like I'm super excited about it. Also
You
super
should be.
nervous because it's living outside of my comfort zone, but excited. So
Yeah.
the insight is that it's really good to do the things that scare you, because it would have been really easy for me to have not done that.
Yes.
So and now
F.
on to F. So again, if you're joining us, different way to look at your week. Instead of thank God it's Friday, it's TGIF, a task you did that you're proud of, some gratitude that you've gained this week, an insight that you've gained this week, and then wrapping it up with something that made you laugh. So something funny from
Yeah.
this week.
I wonder if we have the same one for F.
Mm.
We'll see. So my funny is hanging out with our family last night,
We do have the same
playing a
one.
new playing a new board game, and we're all super uber Friends fans, the TV show Friends. And we found, or you found, the real version, real so to speak, version of the game Bamboozled from the show, and it's a board game, and came via Amazon a few days ago, and we had a chance to play it last night, and we just laughed the entire time, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I had the same exact one. I
Yes.
just put a link to it in the chat box here. So if you're watching the replay, it's and you're wondering why is there just a random link to a game, it's in there. If you are people that, or a person that enjoys the old sitcom Friends as much as we do, you will love this. I mean, Friends in our family is basically our love language. We send friend
Hmm.
memes probably to each other at least once a day. And we quote Friends and The Office on a daily basis, multiple times throughout
Yep.
the day.
We speak in Friends and Office
We
quotes.
do. And so we've been talking for years about like they should make Bamboozled into a game. And
Hmm.
our oldest texted us on Sunday and was like, I'm watching this episode. I wish they had a game. And I was like, I'm on it. I'm going to find it this time. And I did. And it was so much fun. It's also, it was really hard to do that at 10:15 at night last night, because my brain, after seeing a lot of patients and doing a lot of writing work and sort of like internet work, and then internet work made it sound weird. Scheduling, and then no judgment,
social media
planning, and then running a class. My brain was literally dead. And it's a very, very complex game, but totally worth it, totally fun.
So
and
funny.
I assume the more you play, the more fun it is, because then you don't have
the more we played, the more we had fun.
Right.
We were laughing. There was more different things that
Right.
came up, and
yeah,
it was great.
Yeah,
so I highly recommend.
I do too. So that was also my funny. So so I don't know if this is going to stick or not, but it is. I will say that the past now 3 weeks doing this activity of TGIF has been helpful for me, because the past 3 weeks have been hectic and crazy, overwhelming and stressful, but being able to sort of, or forcing myself to take 5 minutes and think about, all right, come on, Jenni, what was a task that you got done? What's something you're grateful for? What was something you learned this week? What was something that was funny? Really kind of stops any negative cycle that you might be in and forces you to just sort of change your perspective. It doesn't change your reality, right? It doesn't change any stuff that happened that was bad, but so give it a try. Super dorky.
But it's not like, so reflective activities like journaling or something, I feel like they might be a little daunting, or they sort of take a long time. This doesn't take a long time.
Journaling is daunting for a lot of people. They're like, I don't know what to write about. But
this reflective activity is quick, and it allows you to like be appreciative of whatever you accomplished.
Yeah, and I really struggled today coming up with it. I mean, not like struggled, like agonized for hours. I just really had to think. And I think that was an important exercise for me to do.
Right.
Okay. So that was sort of part 1 of the podcast. Right, so now we
got to go kind of quickly through the next part. It's getting kind of late.
I know. And I think a storm is rolling in.
That was cool though.
All right. So what we wanted to do that we thought would be quick, but we're both long-winded, is to sort of return to our roots and sort of do another grief episode. But keep it short and kind of a little bit lighter and fun, and tie it to animated films, which I think grew out of our oldest randomly texted us all last week and was like 10 best Disney Pixar film or animated films ever. Go.
Animated films. Yeah.
So animated films were on our mind. Also, Josh, this is very much sort of connected to life, because I had a class that I was teaching today, and we're talking about older adults, and we're talking about end of life issues and death with dignity and all of that. And while my students were in a breakout room sort of working on talking about something, I got an email from the place that we take our pets, and the bigger organization has hired a clinical social worker to provide resources and support for pet parents and grief support. So she reached out to me to ask about grief support, and I was like, I've got some articles, I've also got some podcast episodes, but our podcast episodes about grief, specifically around pet loss, are from like episode 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So I think we need to redo those. So we might need to be engaging and revisiting some of our grief content. So it might be a little bit. Mikey is here. Hi, Mikey. I did get burly during my class. Did you
get burly during your class?
I absolutely did. Actually, you know what's funny is I remembered I had forgotten that Mikey was on one of our episodes. So there is Michael Randy Karen from Get Burly has just joined the chat. And we have a wonderful, very inspiring podcast episode that we did with him that I think must have been during the pandemic. So that's in it. So you can get to our podcast through my website, changingperspectivesonline.com, or you can just Google Changing Perspectives podcast. All right. So we're doing 5 through 1, right? You asked me to rank these. So what was your fifth best grief-focused animated film?
Number 5. Don't hurt yourself. It's okay. Number 5 for me is The Iron Giant. Do you remember The Iron Giant?
Is Jennifer Aniston somehow affiliated with that movie?
Yeah, she voices the mom.
Okay, then that's all I kind of remember.
The Iron Giant. We should say spoilers, right? For these, I think the statute of limitations has run out on many of these movies. So. But spoilers. Anyway, The Iron Giant, if you're not familiar, is a great animated movie from probably 20 years ago. It was one of the movies that combined computer, like CGI stuff and hand-drawn animation. Very, very sweet film. Directed by Brad Bird, who also does, he's a Pixar guy. He does Incredibles and stuff. Anyway, there's such a strong
Was I
connection
supposed
between
to
the
do
two
that kind of
heroes.
research for my movies?
No, I just
Okay.
know this because
Okay.
I didn't even write that down. I
Oh,
just
okay.
know this
All right,
stuff.
okay.
I'm a movie
Okay.
guy. I'm a burly movie guy.
Alrighty.
That was just from Mikey.
Mm-hmm.
The two heroes, we have this little boy who discovers this big gigantic robot, the Iron Giant, who was designed by the military government to be this war machine, but he's not. He's a sweetheart that loves this little boy and loves living things. And there's a big sacrifice at the end of the movie where he basically sacrifices himself to save the town, and the boy has to go through this loss. And a lot of these films, I think, have the concept of enduring connection, Jenny.
Mm-hmm.
Like how to continue to keep the person that died or the loss in at the forefront of your life and thinking, and continually to honor them. And in the movie, I believe they built like a big statue for the Iron Giant in the center of town. It's just a sweet movie, and the whole, not only little boy, but the whole town has to deal with the loss of the titular character, the Iron Giant. So that's my first pick.
Great. I'm
Number 5.
instantly regretting doing this topic because I'm very sad now, because I think I sort of forgot about that movie because I remember feeling sad. So I guess a little disclaimer, this might make you sad, but it's okay. You can lean into your sadness and your grief. All right. So for me, so I wound up sort of looking at my list and recognizing that my 5 are sort of all different approaches and types of grief. Number 5, and I'm sure that you and I are going to have overlap here, but number 5 for me is Toy Story 3.
Okay.
That is the one, right, where like Andy gives his toys away.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yes.
So for me, I just remember the first time. Well, every time I see that movie, I like just sob at the end.
Yeah.
Because I think that we don't really give ourselves permission to grieve that, but like grieving the loss of your own sort of childhood, and while it's great to sort of like find your independence and move into adulthood, there's something really sad about saying goodbye to that childhood version of you, and also then saying goodbye to those tangible things. So there was something very tender and sweet, but also full of grief around particularly that whole sort of story arc of that movie. So in terms of coming of age grief, that was my pick.
You may or may not hear that from my list.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
That was good, Jenny.
Okay.
And I love that movie. Okay, number 4 for me was The Lion King. This is the typical hero's journey with Simba, and such a strong connection to his dad, and he identifies that, that's his dad is his part of his identity. Like he's the essentially the prince that is supposed to take over, and when he loses his dad, he loses his identity. It's sort of like the anti-enduring connection. Like he doesn't want to have an enduring connection. He because of his survivor's guilt, right, Jenny? He doesn't want to have that enduring connection. It's almost as if he couldn't grieve because of it, because he was so overcome by the guilt of surviving when his dad didn't. And obviously this was perpetuated by the villain, which was Scar. So you see, part of his journey, Simba's journey, is how to deal with the loss of his father. And I think it's a big part of that movie is understanding Simba's grief, and we get to see it. So yeah, number 4, Lion King.
All right, great. I just want to put this caveat in for folks that I just got a thunderstorm warning on my phone, and
so we might have some awesome audio. That's all.
We might, and also since we
might lose power.
We lose power if like the wind blows just a little bit. If suddenly we disappear, that's probably why, and you can call Comcast and tell them about it. All right. So my number 4 was Encanto.
Oh, nice.
And not because
newer film, very good,
really well done. I need to watch it again, but I think about it in terms of the grief of generational trauma. and
But we don't
generational
talk
loss.
about Bruno, Jenny.
Thank you. Now that's in my head. There is also that, like, there's grief around like the Bruno character too, and sort of being ostracized from your family, and kind of similar to sort of Simba, what he does after his father's death. But that's not what I was thinking about. I was thinking about the fact that the movie does such a good job portraying how grief and loss that people generations before us can experience, how that can really impact and create the stories of the future generations. And there's no real villain in that movie. The villain is the generational trauma, and the loss and experiences that the grandmother or great grandmother had. And I think they did a really good job portraying that, and the importance of that, and the impact that can have on a family, and also the power of addressing that, the power of sort of calling that out to the open, not avoiding it, and having sort of the younger generations start to sort of break that curse and sort of be a cycle breaker. Oftentimes these animated films are covering really, really heavy topics.
Yeah.
Disguised with some like songs and colorful characters.
I love Encanto. That was a really great movie. And Stephanie Beatriz is one of my favorite actors acting right now. Okay. My number 3, I cheated a little bit. Okay. I'm cheating. I put Toy Story 2 and 3 together.
Okay, that's fine. I'll allow it.
Okay. Is that allowed?
I'll allow it.
You cannot talk about grief in animated movies without talking about Jessie from Toy Story 2. And that amazing song sung by Sarah McLachlan, I think. Does she sing that in that movie?
Is it her or Sarah Bareilles?
I'll
look it up.
I don't know. It's not Sarah Bareilles.
Okay, then it must be Sarah
too old for that. Meaning Sarah Bareilles is a newer singer.
Gotcha.
Jessie talks about losing her child, her kid.
Sarah McLachlan, When She Loved Me.
Yes. Such a beautiful song and such a beautiful moment in that movie, understanding Jessie's grief journey and why she doesn't want to go with Woody to meet with Andy. She just wants to go with the prospector and go to this toy museum or whatever it is. So that whole journey with Jessie is really beautiful, well done, and the song is perfect. And then I was with you, Toy Story 3, when Andy loses part of his childhood and lets go of his toys and gives it to, oh my goodness, what's the little girl's name?
I don't know, but
I forget.
We also I think in terms of timing, I'm sure that came out by the time we were parents, and so looking at it, that experience through the lens of parents too, and recognizing that, like, oh, that is going to be our boys, right? Like, they're going to be Andy. And
they're Andy now.
They're Andy now. And there's that grief of parenting, right? That it's beautiful and wonderful watching our children get older and to see the new versions of themselves that they become. And at the same time, there's grief, and you miss the younger versions that you're never really going to see again. You're going to see glimpses, but
I'd like to direct everybody to one of your new micro posts that talks about that a little bit.
That is one of the ones that I finished yesterday.
Yes. Which is really well written,
Thanks.
Jenny. But yeah, so all right, so that was my number 3, Toy Story 2 and 3 together.
Okay, so for me, my number 3 was Lion King. Obviously for the same reasons that you talked about, but also because of trauma. Because really, not only does Simba lose his father and have survivor's guilt and process it the way we would expect children to process it and sort of re-grieve and go through that again as he gets older, but also he experiences a truly traumatic event that then shapes his life. And I think we also don't talk about trauma a lot, and the impact and the impact childhood trauma can have. And even in the movie, they don't really talk about it. It's just sort of like, well, Simba just watched his dad get murdered. No big deal, no big deal. But that is hugely impactful. And kids at that age have magical thinking, and so can believe things that are their fault. I mean,
Yeah.
Simba was also told it was his fault,
Told it was his
right?
fault. Right.
And so there's also
Run away, Simba.
there's also abuse going on there, and those things I think are important to think about and talk
Yeah.
about too. So um, I think The Lion King, you know, you can't talk about grief in animated movies without really talking about The Lion King. And also in a lot of my grief classes, The Lion King provides wonderful case studies.
Yeah.
I don't make Simba, I don't make his name Simba, and he's not a lion, he's a human. But the story, and his father doesn't get trampled by like wildebeest. But that sort of grief and trauma journey is one that unfortunately a lot of people experience.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Are we at the top two
We
now?
are.
All right. So I kind of feel that way about my number two, that you can't talk about grief in animated film without this movie. And that is Up. The quintessential, in my opinion, movie that addresses grief and
Then
loss
why
and
is
the
it not your number
journey.
one?
Because I'll tell you when I get to my number one.
Okay.
This was could have been a number one, but and probably is your number one. I don't know, just guessing. We see this journey that Carl takes, and it's so heartwarming and sad and beautiful, and you have to have like a stone cold inside to not feel something when
Are
you
you
watch
dead
at
inside?
least
Yeah.
yeah, at least to watch the first like 20 minutes. And you also see not only like the loss of Ellie and Carl's, young adulthood as they grow old, but you see pregnancy loss in that, and then you see the loss of a spouse and a life partner, and you see the loss of plans when they can't take the trip because Ellie gets sick and dies. And then you see that enduring connection and how he wants to honor Ellie, and how he sort of, leans on Russell, and the journey that they take to sort of deal with the loss and yeah, it's just Pixar knows what they're doing. Like, come on. So Up is my number two for obvious reasons.
Okay. All right. I fully support all those reasons.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that our number one and number two are flopped.
Yeah,
Because I'm
probably.
guessing that this one that is made it to number two on my list, I'm guessing is just not on your list. I'm guessing it's on your list. Coco.
Maybe you have to wait and see
Okay.
until I
All
get to
right.
my
Okay.
number one.
So Coco is obviously for me really high up there because enduring connections, right? But also the cultural aspect that it takes in terms of viewing
Yeah.
how this particular culture looks at the relationship and connection to deceased loved ones, which is a very
Hmm.
common way of looking at it. If you sort of zoom out and look at sort of a global perspective of how most of the world deals with grief, death, and dying, it's very similar to Coco. This belief that like your ancestors are somewhere and your job is to stay connected to them and to remember them, and to
Right.
actively do that and to have lots of ceremony and celebrations around that. And so I think they do that beautifully. And then of course you see they do such a wonderful job of Coco, who is this very elderly woman who's still grieving the loss of her father.
Yeah.
Like that's just so beautiful and also true, right? That when a
Yeah.
child loses their father and or a parent or someone close to them, even 80 years can go by and that loss can still be really raw, and really important. So Coco, number two for me
Yeah.
for grief
Well,
movie.
because grief, you don't ever get over it. It doesn't end,
No,
right,
there's
Jenny?
no closure.
And so
Yeah,
there's no
there's
closure.
no
So
closure.
you would think, oh, by the time she's 80 years old, she would have gotten over, quote unquote,
Yeah.
the death of her father.
Yeah.
But yeah. So you are 1000%
Uh-huh.
correct. Coco is my number
Yeah.
one. And I don't know, it might be just a bias thing because it's definitely my favorite Pixar film. It might be my favorite animated film. I just love it so much. I love the visuals. I love the music. And I mean, come on, it's about a musician, and
Right.
that's me. Um, I have yet to watch the ending without crying. And you see, again, going back to what you said, there's so much real, like deep kind of it's serious stuff, these serious themes. You see a brightening with somebody who has dementia or
Right.
Alzheimer's. She remembers something and she's like right there, and then we are led to believe that shortly after that she dies. But the whole movie is about how to honor those we have lost and what that journey looks like. Again, the enduring connection, like you had said, and we've talked about this a fair amount on this show, about how we all as Americans have this very sort of one-dimensional view about loss, grief, funeral practices, death and dying. All just, it's very sort of one-dimensional based on our, for the most part, Irish Catholic, whatever Protestant view of how it's supposed to be done, quote unquote. But then we have done, I think, a okay job taking a step back and looking at the bigger global picture, and you get to see that in Coco, which is really great. I love the way they did that and depicted it. So yeah, Coco's my number one, and I'm guessing your number one is
Dumbo. No, it's up. Um, Dumbo is just sad, and I haven't seen that in forever. No, it is up, but I wanted to add something about Coco first. Coco
Yeah.
also explores sort of generational trauma, right, and sort of
Yes.
the impact of falsehoods or false stories or false narratives that get handed down, and can really kind of create rifts or close people off from entire experiences. So as you were talking, I was thinking about that. Coco
Yeah.
sort of has a little bit of that element too. Yeah. So for me,
I lost a lot of my light because of the storm. I'm sorry.
I know
I'm like it's like the Blair Witch for me right now.
that's the scariest movie I've ever seen. So we like,
Should
it's a drought
I turn a
here,
light
and
on?
our yard is
Oh, the lawn needs the rain
right, but I
so
don't
bad.
actually think it's raining. I think it's just gray. Maybe it's raining.
Right.
Anyways, that's
Is that
riveting.
better? I got a light now.
Riveting
That's better, maybe.
podcast
I don't know.
content. Yes. So for me, I think that the 10, it's about 10 minutes. I've shown it in classes. I think it's like 8 minutes and something. Opening sequence where there's no dialogue. There's dialogue of
Beautiful.
them as kids, but then it's just a beautiful montage of video that
And
tells
I
the
don't
life
know.
story of
I don't
Carl and
know
Ellie.
who. I don't know who the composer is. I'm going to look it up
Okay.
while you're talking, because it's one of the most beautiful scores
Yes.
in cinema history, in my
Yes.
opinion.
And their ability to tell such a heartbreaking, honest, authentic story without words. Like, and it's not even that they're using like lyrics in a song. It's literally just music and video images, and they tell the story of someone's life. And I love it for many, many reasons, but I also love that they explore grief of elderly people, of older adults, right? Because so often, especially in our American culture, we we cast them aside, right? We're like, hey, you should retire at 65, well, unless you want to run our country or be in Congress forever, whatever. We won't get political. But you should retire at 65. And then you're probably going to live like 20, 30, 40 more years, but you're not important. Go hang out in your room and do nothing. And we don't really often acknowledge their grief. We sort of send this message like, well, of course your friends are dying. Of course your spouse died. You're old. Like, get over it. Most people don't say that overtly, but some do. And I love that they explored that grief is real, and that it's like that a strong, kind of rough around the edges old man can be heartbroken, and can really be broken by his grief.
I love the juxtaposition. So real quick, Michael Giacchino is a composer. He's a prolific guy. He did Ratatouille, The Incredibles, Thor: Love and Thunder, The Batman. Like, he's getting work, and there's a reason he's very good. But you see, sort of, they play the grief journey with music and sound, right? So you've got the and then it ends, and what do you hear? You hear the sound of the city with construction. You hear real life, and that's where Carl is. Like, he's got this music that symbolizes his love for Ellie and his relationship and what happened and the grief, and this beautiful melody, this theme, and then his current theme is just life in the city and its construction
Well,
sounds and its traffic.
and really life pushing him out, right? Like literally that's what's happening to him. He's being forced to move because the city is sort of building up. And that is what we do, like metaphorically, that's what happens to you as you get older. You get kind of pushed out. Here in America, you're not that important anymore. You're not important to the labor force anymore. And so it has this really nice reflection of that, but also of hope and, like you said, enduring connection. So I totally agree with everything you said, but also his ability to create a new chapter for himself, like literally it's a new chapter when he goes back to his sort of the book and make meaningful connections with someone else while also grieving and mourning forever the loss of Ellie. It was just really all of these, all of the ones I chose, and I think all of the ones you chose are real authentic explorations of grief and how hard it is. And none of them come to a point where like, oh, the main character is over it. They've reached some point of acceptance. They're no longer grieving. They're no longer sad. It's no longer impacting them. And, you know, they've kind of just moved on and put that behind them.
They've got closure.
Like none of that is true. I think in any of these films, there's sadness, and the films allow and encourage people to lean into that sadness and feel it. And so anytime there's, you know, real authentic exploration of that, I'm all for it. Okay.
All right, Jenny.
So I said we should try to keep this under an hour, and it's 46 minutes. So that is quite amazing. I'm proud of us.
I'm proud of us too. This was a good episode, I feel like.
Okay, we'll see. Not a lot of people watching. The last time we did this live recording, it was on, I think, a Thursday night. And maybe there's more people sitting at their computers versus a Friday at 4:30.
And we had planned to do that, but we were just
dead.
We were too tired after a long day.
But if you are catching the replay, definitely say hello, say hi. If you've got questions or comments, I promise I will go through and engage with them. And also, if you have topics that you want us to cover in upcoming podcast episodes, let us know. I think we will probably circle back to grief quite a bit and some relationship ones. But if there's other topics you want us to cover, I can't promise that we'll go for every single idea, but throw it out there and we'll see. We'll see where it goes. So for those of you watching, you can catch the podcast. I don't know when Josh will. I would say probably we could aim for Monday morning. By Monday morning.
This will be out on Monday, the
6th, 7th, 8th.
8th. August 8th.
Okay. And you'll be able to get it anywhere.
Episode 101.
Yes. Anywhere podcasts are found. And I am toying with some new podcast art. So also, if that'll be a separate topic.
Okay.
I might want to hire someone to do our podcast art, because I'm just not creative like that. I can make memes and I can write articles, but when it comes to creating a cover art, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know. Here's me. Here's you. Here's the name of our podcast. That's as creative as I get.
I guess that's all you need.
So the rebranding, I think we might need to hire someone to do that for us. So if you know someone, or if you are someone, definitely reach out to us. And you can find my stuff over at changingperspectivesonline.com or on Facebook at Changing Perspectives with Jenni Brennan. It's great to be back and to be in this space again, and hopefully this format continues to work out.
Absolutely.
Okay. Are you distracted right now? What are you doing?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm good.
All right. And our dogs all behaved.
They did. They did. Well, I think they're exhausted for some reason.
They are. Yeah.
Lola took a ride earlier, and just took it out of her. It was like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Are we ready to close this one out? Episode 101 out.
We are. The storm is over us now. Yes.
All right, Jenny. Thank you for a fun show. And how about you say bye, Jenny?
Bye, Jenny.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.